This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
It's time for another retro interview with a celebrity that is no longer with us. Over the last 25 years or so, I've had the pleasure to talk with some great stars of the past. This time around, it's a chat I had back in June of 1994. The star was born Robert Osborne Denver, but we knew him best as Bob. We knew him even better as Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. At the time that we spoke, he was promoting his just-released book, Gilligan, Maynard, and Me. Here is just part of that hour-long interview now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Gilligan.
Sure.
You did that show for only 3 years, correct?
Right, 98 episodes.
98 episodes. I guess you had no idea at the time you were going into this the phenomenon it would become.
No, I would have made a better deal, Peter. I would have made some kind of a deal. Now, it's 30 years this year. It's been on the air continually for 30 years, and it's been really fun to watch the audience because it's been the same every year, pretty much the same, except in the mid-'80s, the older folks in their 70s and 80s started taking the autographed pictures home for themselves. No, that's for me. It's not for my grandson, you know.
Now, when that show first was being cast,
Mm-hmm.
You weren't the first choice for Gilligan, were you?
Well, he was looking, I guess he was looking for the Van Dyke brother.
Jerry,
yeah. And then when I met with him, I had a meeting with Sherwood Schwartz, the producer, writer, and creator. And when he and I got done talking, I was on the floor laughing when he told me the premises of some of the, and the guest stars and things. I said, "Are you sure the network's going to let you do this?" And he said, "Yeah, I've got permission to shoot the pilot." And so I said, "Well, fine. It'd be great." So we shook hands, and that was the deal. And then we shot the pilot on the island of Kauai in the Hawaiian string there. And I still couldn't believe it when I was in Hawaii for 2 weeks shooting a half-hour situation comedy that was so stupid and silly. And then I figured, well, if it didn't sell, at least I got a nice, 2 weeks, and I stayed an extra 2 weeks after, so I had a month on the island. And I figured that was really nice. If it didn't sell, fine. Then, of course, it sold and became a hit.
Now, in the long run, you, along with all the other cast members, have been, typecast in the roles you've played.
Right.
But ironically, wasn't one of the reasons Mr. Schwartz didn't want you initially because he thought you were typecast as Maynard?
Yeah, he couldn't. I said to him, there was this guy named Bob Denver that did a beatnik on Dobie Gillis, and he said he did a beatnik. Well, I'm not looking for that kind of character. I'm looking for a kind of a stumbling, innocent type. And so after we met and had our meeting, he said, we talked for about an hour, and we just got along really good. And I guess our favorite book was Robinson Crusoe as kids, both of us, so we had a lot in common.
Now, you yourself just said a few minutes ago it was a rather silly premise.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of weeks ago, we were talking on the air here with Steve Allen.
Right.
And we talked about various television shows, and he wasn't too flattering with your show or the Beverly Hillbillies. And it was, those are shows that, critically speaking, were not necessarily beloved in the press.
Oh, no.
Yet the audiences seem to just fall over themselves watching them.
Yeah, it's interesting because the critics just killed our show. I mean, I think out of 100 reviews, there were 99 bad and one good one. But it was it didn't bother us because we knew we were doing really something silly and something very, very broad. A lot of physical comedy, and with a premise I thought was just really hilarious. And then I had a cast that was excellent. Each person was perfect as the character. And what's happened is it picks up kids every year.
Mm-hmm.
I get letters. Just last week I got one from a mother who says, the 1-year-old's watching in the high chair. Please send an autographed picture. So, there it is, 94, and, it just rolls on. I mean, I understand why a lot of the intellectuals or the elite don't, really get behind it because it's, it's that kind of comedy that, it's, you can put it down really easy.
When you did shoot the pilot and you looked at the script for the first time, did you think it would sell?
I had no idea. I just, it was so much fun to do that kind of,
Because
comedy.
I understand.
Plus I met Alan Hale,
Yeah.
And doing physical comedy with Alan was probably the most fun.
Didn't Natalie Schaefer, who played Lovey Howell, only take the pilot because she wanted to go to Hawaii?
That's right. Yeah, her story was that she was in Acapulco or Puerto Vallarta, one of those cities in Mexico, on a vacation. And at the time, her mother was ill in Los Angeles, and a telegram came to her table at dinner, and she read it and burst into tears. And all her friends with her at the vacation said, "Oh, Natalie, is it your mother? Is something wrong?" She said, "No, the pilot sold." And then that was one of her favorite stories. I mean, they kind of almost convinced her it wouldn't sell. It was just a vacation for her. And after we started shooting, she really got into it. But she was really a great lady.
Now, one of the shows that I was a big fan of was The Good Guys.
Oh, you're one of my fans. One of my few fans.
Yeah, I watched that. It was on for, what, 2 years?
Yeah.
With Herb Edelman?
Right,
And
Joyce Van Patten.
Joyce Van Patten.
Yep.
I was looking through some of the credits of some of the things you've done. I have a couple of books here in front of me besides yours, which kind of show television series as they go along.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, you had a pretty successful run there. I mean, you went from Dobie Gillis
Yep.
to Gilligan's Island
Yep.
to The Good Guy. You had a decade where you were just busy from one show to another. A lot of actors can't say that.
Yeah, I had about 11 years, starting in 59 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided that was it. I just said, that's enough. I want to go back to stage work. And so I was on Broadway for about 4 months. Woody Allen's play played again Sam.
Mm-hmm.
He left and I took over. And then when I took it on the road for about, I guess, almost 6 or 7 years, and then just proceeded to do everything that was available off Broadway. I came on the circuit, and dinner theater was very hot in this country then, and it was hilarious. People came to see plays, they didn't even know what they were. What do you call that? And I said, it's a play. No kidding. How long has it been around? And I say about 4,000 years. No kidding, But it was really fun for people that would never go to the theater. I mean, they would never, they figured they had to get dressed up or do something. And the wife would drag them and, tell them it's a big buffet and they could eat all they wanted to and then just be quiet during the show. And we did good comedies. We did all the Neil Simons, my wife and I. And so we had a great time.
Do you find in doing a role like Gilligan and the typecasting that you get, and other characters that you have played, let's be honest, some of the characters you played have not been some of the brightest guys.
No. They were leaning toward nebbish.
Yeah,
They were, kind of, they weren't terribly dumb, but they weren't terribly bright.
I mean, you're an educated guy. You what was it, political science major?
Yeah, that's right.
And you were also a teacher?
Yes.
Do you find that sometimes people come up to you and they think you are Gilligan or?
No, it's really funny because I thought maybe after, in the 70s something like that would happen, but now it's 30 years and people have been coming up to me and they know it's just a character I made up. There's nobody that really, it's such a fantasy the whole show is, When, it's like for kids it's like a, whole thing in frustration. He never gets off the island. Where do all those clothes come from? How did he do that, And so it's kind of fun and they've always been polite. In 30 years I've had no one come up to me with any kind of rude or, rude remark or, anything that's weird. They just grin because I'm in their childhood.
Yeah.
The show is stuck in their childhood, and it's a real good memory for them.
Yet I understand, looking through some trivia books, that some people did take it kind of seriously. I understand the U.S. Coast Guard got some calls from concerned viewers who suggested that they try and rescue you guys off the island.
There was an admiral in the east here somewhere, and he's a retired admiral, and he was in his 70s, and he got the coordinates. We gave him out one time, the longitude and latitude, which was, if you looked it up, was in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific Ocean, and he knew the chain of command, so he called Washington, and Washington called Hawaii, and pretty soon they had one of the cutters steaming up, and one of the young sailors came up to the captain and said, "Sir, I think it's a TV show." And he said, "What, son?" He says, "I think it's a TV show, sir." And they checked it out again, and they found out, of course, it was. And they came on the set. The commander did with this huge stack of, I guess all these memorandums and everything else that came out of Washington. We almost really got rescued.
When I was talking to people in the office and friends of mine telling them that we were going to be talking to you, Bob, everyone started singing the song.
You can get 10,000 people together, perfect strangers, and say, let's sing something, and somebody says, let's sing the theme from Gilligan's Island. And at the end of the song, everybody's friends. You say, oh, remember the one where he did? Remember that episode? And it's really fun to watch.
Can you ever go anywhere without hearing it? Are you tired of that song by now?
No, I don't hear it quite that much. I hear it on interviews and things. And I was in the Pump Room in Chicago with a fancy restaurant there, and they have a little trio playing in the corner, very almost semi-classical, almost chamber music. And as I walked to my table, I heard, dun, 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 dun. I never heard it quite that version,
There's also a reggae version out there.
There's a rap version, too.
Yeah. After you did such shows as Gilligan, and the concern about being typecast, both by Maynard and by Gilligan, were there any characters that you or your agent thought that you were perfect for and you just didn't get the part?
No, I can't think of any time that, I got where I had a part and I got knocked off because of typecasting. I never got through the initial part of getting the part.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you see in contemporary television today that you say, gee, that'd be a part I'd like to tackle myself?
Oh, I'd like to be a guest star on Northern Exposure.
Really?
I could play a real crazy character because they certainly have nutty people on that show, and they have dream sequences and all kinds of fantasy. And I'd like to guest star in that. Last year I did a evening shade with Burt Reynolds, and I got to play myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to my acting teacher to figure that out.
Do you watch much television?
Oh yeah, sure. I watch like Northern Exposure, Home Improvement, and I think I love Charles Kurrell Sunday Morning, and my comedy channel C-SPAN. Some of the routines are a little long, but otherwise it's funny.
The Packwood stuff is good. Is there a place where Gilligan's Island is not seen?
I don't know. Dawn Wells was on a Samoan island that they had to take an outrigger to get to, right? Paddle out to it. And she went into the chief's hut, and the chief's wife went, "Mary Ann!" And she went, "Oh, no." They had no electricity, no TV, and it turned out the chief's wife had gone to another island to study nursing and had seen the show there.
What has happened to the cast members?
Well, 3 of them are gone. The Howells and the skipper, Jim Backus, Natalie Schaefer, and Alan Hale. They passed away, and there's just 4 of us left now.
And what are you all doing these days?
Well, Dawn Wells and Russ Johnson, we get together like 2 or 3 times a year, and we get rescued wherever there's a body of water. And it's really fun, because we'll be in an airport, and Dawn will be standing like 10 feet behind me, and some young man in his 20s will come up to me and he'll say, "Oh, I really love the show," and all that. And I say, "Yeah." And I said, "What do you think of Mary Ann?" He goes, "Oh, wow, she was really great," And I said, "Would you like to meet her someday?" And he goes, "Oh, boy, let me tell you, that would just be, oh, boy." And I said, "There she is." And the guy just turns red, becomes 9 years old right in front of my eyes. Can't talk, feet shuffling.
Well, the 3 women, I think, who were a big hit with a lot of kids, even though they may have been overshadowed by their more glamorous sidekicks, would have to be Betty from Betty and Veronica,
Right.
Betty Rubble,
Yep.
and Mary Ann.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the 3.
Over the years, they've had contests wherever I go, and they even had national contests to see who the guys like the most, Ginger or Mary Ann. And Mary Ann always wins like 75 at least percent vote for Mary Ann.
The show you did before, Dobie Gillis.
Right.
You played Maynard Krebs on that show.
Right.
How was it creating that particular character?
Oh, that was fun. He was a beatnik, when he first started out in the first and second year and nobody knew what a beatnik was except they, really liked music. And I made him a real jazz fan. Thelonious Monk and Bill Evans and all the big jazz people that were popular at the time. And I was left alone pretty much to create the character because nobody knew exactly, where I was going with it. So it was really a lot of fun. And so it was, for, my first series and my first, acting professional job, it was just a great deal of fun.
During the span of that program, if I'm not mistaken, were you not actually drafted?
Yeah, I was drafted. I had done 4 episodes, and I got drafted into the Army, actually. And I went down for the physical, and I went 4F because I had a broken neck back in the 50s. And so I went back to the set to tell them. I was so excited, I could go back and, pick up and do the rest of the first year. And they had signed Michael J. Pollard to take my place as my cousin, a beatnik cousin. And I walked on the set, and they said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm 4F. They don't want me. They don't want me." And they said, "Yeah, funny. When are you going?" I said, "No, really." And they just wouldn't believe me. Until finally, after 3 or 4 hours standing there, they went, Max Schulman came over, and he said, "Are you serious? You didn't get drafted?" And I said, "No." He said, "Just go home. We signed this man here, Michael, for 30 shows. And this is the first one he's doing. Just go home. Please, we'll call you." And then they put me in the next week, and they paid Michael off. We got paid. He did 1 episode and got paid for 30. And he said, he came out of New York. He said, "I'd heard of going to California to discover gold, but I didn't know it was true until now."
What was it like working with some of the cast members? Warren Beatty was in that show for a while,
He did
wasn't
about 6 or 7 in the first year, but we all knew he wasn't destined for, a situation comedy. He was heading for the motion pictures.
You tell a story about him getting locked in a dressing room?
Oh, yeah, we had one of those little canvas, knockdown dressing rooms on the stage, and somebody locked him in. I don't know who did it. And instead of, yelling to get out or trying to knock it down, he just waited till the cameras rolled and it was during a take. And he started singing an aria in an operatic voice that just carried 2 miles. The director yells, "Cut! What is that? Where is that? Who's doing that?" Then went over and he said, "It's Warren Beatty. He's locked in his dressing room." They said, "Well, let him out. We can't shoot with that kind of noise." Good God.
In addition to a lot of the successes you've had your share of pilots that didn't do well or didn't sell.
Yeah, sure.
And the one thing I noticed that's interesting about a lot of the shows you have worked on is that there's an association with Sherwood Schwartz.
Oh, yeah, sure. But Sherwood, as a producer, he was one of the best, writer-producer. It's amazing. That man was just amazing. We never knew there was any problems when we were shooting. He kept all the network craziness away from us. He was writing scripts literally, 4 months in advance, so, special effects and props always got them in plenty of time. And it was like working on you just memorized your words and just went down there and had a great time. It wasn't until afterwards when I left, I realized that not everybody was, in the same situation.
Did everyone get along on the show?
Yeah, we all got along professionally. I mean, we all did our acting, and I guess Tina was, she wasn't too happy with the show because, like in the TV Guide, I guess it was in 1965, she said if she wasn't on it, she wouldn't have watched it.
Oh, so you already know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I think so.
Yeah. Now, I was reading, I believe it was in USA Today, where she was not too happy with this book you had.
No, she got very upset because I said I heard her having sex in the dressing room next to mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that was very bad. I just, it kind of struck me funny at lunch hour that I pounded on the wall and nothing happened. I mean, I couldn't shut it down. The noise was so loud. But she got very upset. But I think now she's kind of taken it with a sense of humor. I hope she is.
Did she actually think that she had top billing when she first got that job?
Yeah, they had told her that in New York. They had said to her that she's the star of the show. My problem is if you get fourth billing, wouldn't that be a clue?
Going on to Alan Hale,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that he was also very, very loyal to the program.
Oh, yeah. He
Was
hilarious. I mean, we do personal appearances together for, I guess, until he passed away. And it was so much fun with him because he loved being the skipper and he loved the little kids, I'd sign autographs behind him, and a kid would come up and he'd say, "What's your name?" And he'd say, "Billy." And he'd write Billy. He'd say, "Do you have a brother, Billy?" And he'd say, "Oh, yeah, and a sister, Billy." And meanwhile, I'm signing the autograph pictures. I got a whole stack ready to go by the time he got through with the one kid. But he was the sweetest man, really was.
Now, I heard a story that he actually broke his arm at the end of the second season and didn't tell anybody?
No, we were like 3 more shows to do, and we were on the third one. We had 2 more before we were going to break. And he fell out of a tree, and he broke his wrist. And I saw the ace bandage on it, the next week, and I said, "What happened to your wrist?" And he said, "Oh, a little sprain, nothing wrong with it." And it wasn't a year later that, I found out that he waited, he did the 2 episodes, 2 more weeks of work, and then went and got it set. Because he just didn't want to shut it down, and have everybody, miss their vacation. And he said he was the sweetest man.
That was part of an interview with actor Bob Denver from June of 1994. He referred to Alan Hale Jr. as the sweetest man, but I can truly say that so was Bob Denver. I had the pleasure and honor to work with him as the host of a special night to Sherwood Schwartz at Montreal's Just for Laughs. In both cases, you couldn't meet nicer, sweeter men. In May of 2005, Denver underwent quadruple heart bypass surgery and was subsequently diagnosed with throat cancer. The cancer and pneumonia claimed his life on September 2nd, 2005. You can hear the full hour-long interview with Bob on my website at thestufffile.com. Click on Celebrity Audio Files and you'll find the interview with Bob and also interviews with others. They're all listed in alphabetical order and you can play them right off the page.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.